It is so good to be back in Tucson, Arizona. And in just 2 weeks' time, or as we used to say in the Marine Corps, 13 days and a wake-up, we're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States, and it's going to start right here in Arizona. Now, we have some great dignitaries. You guys have some great local leadership. I want to give them a shout-out before we get started. We've got Chairwoman of the Arizona GOP, Gina Swoboda. Where's Gina at? Hey, Gina, thank you. Gina and I get along very well, even though I pronounce Gina's name differently every single time that I see her. Gina, I'm so sorry. By the end of this election, we will figure it out, but only if we win Arizona by 5 points. So that's the challenge. I'm so thrilled to have President of the National Border Patrol Council, Paul Perez. Paul, where are you at? There we go. Paul and his agents are doing a hell of a job despite the fact that Kamala Harris is a disaster. Let's win to give Paul Perez the leadership that this country deserves. Some real border security with Donald J. Trump. And we've got the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, Art Del Cueto. Art, thank you so much, man. It's good to see you. Think about it. These guys are doing such a good job keeping us safe. They're doing such a good job despite the fact that the Vice President of the United States is their border czar and is committed to open borders. Don't we need to give these people a president who fights for them instead of fighting against them? And that's what Donald Trump is going to do. Now, let's talk just a little bit about Kamala Harris, shall we? Now, I've got the easiest job in American politics, if you think about it. Because Jesus is Lord. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm not afraid to say that. It'd be good to have a vice president not afraid to say that. But look, here's the thing. I got the easiest job in politics because all that I have to do is go out and remind the American people that Donald Trump was the president of peace and prosperity. That's a pretty damn easy job to do. We just got to talk about the fact that when Donald Trump was president, take-home pay was rising faster than it had in a generation. When Donald Trump was president, inflation was a low 1.5%. And when Donald Trump was president, the border was secure. That's a hell of a record to run on, and that's the Donald Trump record. Now, I honestly feel bad. I'm probably the only person in the room that feels bad for Governor Tim Walz. And I think that reaction suggests that I'm right. I'm the only person that feels bad for Governor Tim Walz. Because think about it, if I've got the easiest job to do in American politics, he's got the hardest job in American politics. He's got to go around and convince the American people that Kamala Harris is somehow going to solve the very problem she has been creating over the last 3.5 years. That's a tough job. If you're the praying type, I suggest maybe you say a prayer for Tim Walz, because here's what Tim Walz has to do. He has to somehow pretend that Kamala Harris didn't open the American southern border, but she did. He has to pretend that Kamala Harris didn't cast trillions of dollars in new spending, which is why groceries and housing are unaffordable in the state of Arizona and across our country. Tim Walz has to try to convince people that Kamala Harris actually has ideas in her head for how to govern the United States of America. And I think all of us with common sense, when we see Kamala Harris say things like on day one, she's going to tackle the affordability crisis affecting American families. A lot of us are saying, Kamala, day one was 1,400 days ago. What the hell have you been doing the whole time? Go do your job. Stop talking about how you're going to do your job. Now, I will say, in Kamala's defense, look at this. Look at me being bipartisan. I'm being nice to Tim Walz. I'm being nice to Kamala Harris. In Kamala's defense, I think that every time she does an interview, we gain about 100,000 votes. So Kamala, keep on doing those interviews, whether they're softballs or not. And I don't know if you've seen some of the softball interviews that she does, but you know, the problem, I know we have some baseball fans in the room, right? We've got some baseball fans. The problem with a softball interview is that you still got to be able to hit a softball. And I don't know if Kamala Harris could hit a T-ball based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And now we joke about this, but actually the joke is on us, because this is not just a person who's bad at doing interviews. This is a person who doesn't have the competence or the skills to be president of the United States. And I think in just 2 weeks, Arizona is going to send Kamala Harris a message: go back to San Francisco where you belong. We're making Donald Trump the next president. Now let's just talk about the economy for a little bit, and then I want to talk about the open border of Kamala Harris, because of course in Tucson we've got some of the biggest problems with the open border that we've had anywhere in our country. But think about how bad the inflation and affordability crisis has gotten under Kamala Harris's leadership. We've got average Arizona families are spending $1,000 more a month today to buy what they could have bought when Donald Trump was president. We've got Arizona families that are paying 55% more for housing and rent today than they were when Donald Trump was president. And we got a lot of Arizona families that are paying 25% higher prices for groceries than when Donald Trump was president. Now, this is because we departed from some very common sense economic principles, and I think it's important to compare the record and the plans of Donald Trump against Kamala Harris. Now, the biggest reason that we've got runaway affordability problems is because Kamala Harris has waged war on American energy. Think about this. If the truck driver who's bringing the groceries to the grocery store is paying 45% more for diesel, then all of us are paying more for groceries. If the truck driver who's delivering the lumber to the construction site is paying 50% more for gas, then all of us are paying more for housing. So Kamala Harris wants to wage war on American energy. Donald Trump's plan is very simple: drill, baby, drill. Unleash American energy, and you'll lower prices for American consumers. Now, there's another thing that Kamala Harris, she's got her economic plan totally upside down. She'll say that she wants, and I've never seen a politician in my life, even the ones who want to raise taxes, they usually lie about it, right? Kamala Harris is going around bragging about the fact that she is going to undo the Trump tax cuts and raise taxes by millions and billions of dollars on working families. And then she wants to give money to foreign corporations that ship our jobs overseas. Well, isn't there something wrong with that? Here's the Donald Trump approach. We're going to lower taxes for working Americans, and we're going to penalize the companies that are shipping jobs overseas, not reward them. You know, Kamala Harris, she wants to impose so many regulations on our workers, on our businesses. There have been hundreds of billions of dollars of additional regulations that have nothing to do with clean water or clean air. Donald Trump and I, we believe in clean air and clean water. We also believe that we can have a growing economy while protecting our workers and protecting the jobs that they do. That's a big difference. And perhaps the biggest difference of all is that Kamala Harris came into office bragging that she wanted to open the American southern border. She came into office bragging about undoing all of Donald Trump's border policies. You know what Donald Trump thinks we ought to do? Build that wall, finish that wall, and send illegal aliens back home, not to the United States of America. Now, there is this crazy thing that Kamala Harris keeps saying. And you know, if you think of her campaign, if you pay attention to their campaign, she never talks about how she's going to lower grocery and housing prices for American citizens because she doesn't have any plans to do it. And most importantly, she's made the problem worse over the last 3.5 years. She'll never talk about how she's going to bring peace and stability back to the world with her foreign policy because she's been in office for 3.5 years and the world is on fire right now. So every time they ask her a question, every time they put a microphone in front of Kamala Harris and they ask her what she's going to do, she'll say, well, I grew up in a middle-class family. Or increasingly what she'll say is she'll talk about Donald Trump. And the audacity for a person who's been in power for 3.5 years blaming Donald Trump for her failures, I'd like to have a president who takes some responsibility for themselves and their leadership, and that's not Kamala Harris. So I want to talk about something that hasn't gotten much news coverage, and it's connected to this border issue. And I want to name this family and this young man by name because though you may not know about it, because again, the news media hasn't really covered it, just a few days ago, there was a United States Marine veteran who was killed by the Mexican drug cartels. I'm dead serious. I want to tell you a little bit about this man because I just met his family. I just met his brother-in-law and his father, and of course they're heartbroken, but they mustered the courage to tell me a little bit about their son who lost his life, and I want to tell you a little bit about him. First of all, you know, I'm biased because I was in the Marines, but this is a tall, good-looking guy, one of our very best, and his name was Nicholas Douglas Quetz. And he was murdered. He was visiting somebody in Mexico. They were going to do some beach activities. He got stopped by the Mexican drug cartels, and he lost his life. And one of the things that we have to appreciate is that what the cartels are doing, my friends, it's not just affecting us north of the border, it's affecting everything north and south of the border. It's affecting a young Marine who wants to go visit a friend and spend some time on a beach. Because when we allow these cartels to get rich off of American suffering, then it destabilizes not just our communities, it destabilizes Mexico and the United States together. And yes, sometimes a lot of Mexican citizens are paying for that, but sometimes our own American citizens are paying the price for that too. Now here's what's additionally really disgraceful. This family lost their son I believe 4 days ago. Have they heard from a single elected official? Of course they haven't. Of course they haven't. Because we're led by incompetent people who don't give a damn about American citizens, and that's going to change when Donald Trump is the president of the United States. You know what else they told me is that they believe, and apparently American authorities believe, that they actually have the name of the person who killed this handsome young Marine. And you know what should be happening is that a U.S. attorney ought to be filing charges against that scumbag and bringing him to the United States to face the full force of American law. So gentlemen, I hope to the family of Nicholas, I hope that by talking about this today, we brought some attention to what's going on. But here is my solemn promise to you while you've been ignored by your own government for the last 4 days in the midst of this unbelievable tragedy. I promise you, the cavalry is coming, and when Donald Trump is president, we're going to kick the cartel's asses, and we're going to do it for you and for every person in this room. Because, you know, I appreciate the show's support, and I just cannot believe that we've gotten to a point where, thanks to Kamala Harris's policies, we've turned Mexico into a narco state on our southern border. The cartels, in some ways, are more powerful than the local Mexican authorities, and that is injuring, it's killing, and it's making our citizens less safe. This has got to stop. You're sick of it, and I'm sick of it, and it's going to change. In 2 weeks, it's going to change. And I just, to the American voters, especially those that are watching at home, think about what Kamala Harris actually thinks about us. If she's talking not about young Marines losing their lives, if she's talking not about how to reimpose border security, she's not talking about how to make groceries more affordable, she's talking about Donald Trump, and she's going around and campaigning with washed-up politicians like Liz Cheney. She's betting on all of us being dumb. And you know what Donald Trump and I are betting on? We're betting on all of the American people being smart and patriotic and kicking Kamala Harris to the curb, which is exactly where she belongs. Now, I just say this, but, I watched this event with Kamala Harris. Remember a couple months ago, the media was all focused on how Kamala Harris, she was the candidate of joy. The candidate of joy. Well, we've got all the joy in this room right now in the Trump events. We're having a good time, and we're going to have a better time on November 5th. But they did this event with Kamala Harris, and she's basically whining at the people at it wasn't a rally. I don't think they had that many people there, frankly. But she's whining at people for thinking that Donald Trump is funny. And she's like, how dare you have a sense of humor, and when a guy cracks a joke, you actually laugh at it. The joy is gone from the Kamala Harris campaign, my friend. She's mad at us for thinking that our president, who does have a very good sense of humor, is actually good at telling jokes from time to time. Well, I'm proud. Politics doesn't have to be dull and boring. Sometimes you can have a good time, and I think Donald Trump recognizes that better than anybody. But watching her up there, complaining at her fellow citizens for laughing at jokes, all I could think about was she doesn't come across as a president. She comes across as a vice principal who's very disappointed. My friend, she's very disappointed in us. She's very disappointed that we laugh at jokes from time to time. She's very disappointed that we want to pay lower prices for groceries and housing. She's very disappointed that we want to close down southern border. And she's very disappointed that in 2 weeks we're going to tell Kamala Harris, you're fired, get the hell out of Washington, D.C. All right, okay. Now here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make one more point, and then I'm gonna take some questions from the reporters, and then we'll have to wrap up and hit the road. I think we're headed to Nevada today, and then we'll do some events there, and then we'll head back to the East Coast, where we'll be campaigning in Georgia, North Carolina, and then in the Midwest. So we're getting around, ladies and gentlemen. We're having a good time doing it. But the final message I want to leave you all with is we're going to win this race, but only if we get out there and vote. All of this politicking, all these rallies, all these media interviews, all the fun that we're having, it's not going to amount to anything unless we get our friends and family out there to the polls. And so I want to make 3 requests of you. Number 1, there's a website that we built called swampthevoteusa.com, and I'll repeat it, swampthevoteusa.com. You can check your registration, you can check how to get a mail-in ballot if that's what you want to do, you can check your polling location, you can check how to get involved in our efforts in these final 2 weeks to get out the vote and make sure that we actually win this race. Because if we all get out there and vote, we're going to win this race, and Donald Trump's going to be the President of the United States. That's a pretty damn good thing. Sorry. That's number 1. Number 1 is swampthevoteusa.com. Number 2, while I'm taking reporters or now, or you can do it, whatever makes sense, we'll be here for another 15 minutes or so. Take out your phone, take a photo of this rally, take a photo of yourself and your friends and your family, post it on social media, or text it to your friends and tell them why you're voting for Donald Trump for president. We're never going to have Kamala Harris and her corporate media allies tell the truth about this campaign or about this movement, but you know who can tell the truth? Every single person in this room, and if we tell the truth, we win. That's the second request I want to make of you. And the third request is I want every person in this room to get out there and vote 10 times. I can see some of you are like, we're in Tucson, not Maricopa County. We only vote once down here. But we're going to vote in Maricopa County and here in Tucson. We're going to vote 10 times the legal way. And that means taking yourself to the polls and get 9 of your friends and family. Get them to the polls, make sure they vote the right way, and that's how we take this country back. So, with that, I will say thank you, Arizona. Thank you for all your hard work. Let's get across the finish line and make Donald Trump the next president and take this country back. God love you. Thank you so much.